Sometimes I would stand in the middle of the house and feel tired for no reason, not physically, mentally. One evening, I was looking for a simple screwdriver. I opened one drawer, then another, then another. Batteries, old receipts, random cables, keys that probably open nothing anymore, and somehow I still couldn't find it. At the same time, Olivia was in the kitchen trying to make space in the cabinets again. Leo was upstairs looking for one of his toys, and even after 10 minutes, he still couldn't find it either. The strange part was this. Our house wasn't small, but somehow it felt like there was no room left anywhere. Over the years, the garage had slowly turned into storage, boxes, old tools, things we said we might need one day, kitchen appliances we barely used, and things I barely even remembered buying anymore. Some nights I could still park the car inside. Other nights it was hard just to walk between the boxes. And the strange thing was, it all happened so slowly we almost didn't notice it. One package came into the house. Another shelf became full. Another corner disappeared. Quietly. Year after year. Until one day the house started feeling heavy. Not old. Not broken. Heavy. And maybe the strangest part was this. Most of the things filling our house weren't even making our lives better anymore. They were just there. Taking space. Taking attention. Taking energy. That night, standing in the middle of the garage, surrounded by things I barely remembered buying, I realized something. Our house had grown bigger over the years, but somehow, our lives had started feeling smaller. Let me tell you a story. That evening, Olivia and I were sitting at the kitchen table. There were bills on the table, numbers, silence. Olivia looked tired, not physically, the kind of tiredness that slowly builds up over years. She looked around the kitchen for a moment, then quietly said, "How is it possible that we make this much and still feel this tight?" I didn't answer right away, because honestly, I'd been thinking the same thing for a long time. We weren't irresponsible people. We paid our bills. We worked hard. We didn't live like rich people. And yet, somehow, life still felt heavy. Olivia looked toward the kitchen counter. There was stuff everywhere. Boxes, unused appliances, drawers that barely closed anymore. Then she looked at me. "Michael, do we really need all of this?" Silence. I looked around the house, and for the first time, I stopped seeing stuff. I started seeing weight, things to clean, things to organize, things to store, things demanding quiet attention every single day. And maybe the strangest part was this. Most of those things weren't even making us happy anymore. They had quietly become part of our lives. One package at a time, one purchase at a time, one why not at a time, until one day the house stopped feeling peaceful and started feeling full. The next morning we started small. One drawer. That was the deal. Not the whole house, not the garage, just one drawer. Olivia opened it. Expired batteries, old receipts, 3 pairs of scissors, cables for things we didn't even own anymore. Leo walked into the kitchen, looked at the drawer, then looked at us. "What are you doing?" Olivia smiled. "Trying to make some space." He watched us quietly for a few seconds, then picked up an old charger. "Can I throw this away?" I looked at it. Honestly, I had no idea what it belonged to either. "Yeah," I said. "You can." And that was how we started. But over the next few days, something started changing. Not just the house, us too. The storage room started feeling lighter. The kitchen looked calmer. The counters slowly started clearing up. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like it could breathe again. One night I did a small search online, and honestly, the numbers surprised me. Research in the US showed that most people only regularly use a small portion of the things they own. The rest mostly just sits there. And the more I looked around the house, the more I realized something. We weren't living around our lives anymore. We were living around our stuff. A few days later, the same scene started repeating itself in different parts of the house. Another box, another drawer, another shelf. And strangely, we realized that most of the things we were throwing away hadn't even crossed our minds for months. One day, Olivia was cleaning out her closet. She was placing clothes on the bed. Some of them still had tags on them. She looked at me. I still thought I was going to wear this. Then she smiled. I guess I've been thinking that for 3 years. That night, I did another small search online, and I learned something interesting. In the average American closet, there are 30 to 50 pieces of clothing that are never worn, and honestly, that didn't surprise me anymore. I was in the garage too, going through old boxes. I found a tennis racket. I hadn't touched it in years, an old coffee machine, a broken lamp, and around 10 different cables. I had no idea what any of them belonged to. Then I remembered something else I had read online. According to research, people in the US stop using around 50% of the things they buy within just 6 months. And standing in the middle of the garage, it wasn't hard to understand why. Then I realized something. We weren't keeping things because we needed them. We were keeping them because maybe one day we might. And that one day almost never came. One night, I called Tom. We're doing some cleaning around the house, I said. He laughed. Don't throw it away, man. You might need it. I thought about how many times I had heard that sentence in my life. Maybe it wasn't really about the stuff. Maybe people weren't storing objects. Maybe they were storing fears. The fear of scarcity, the fear of regret, the fear of needing something one day, and sometimes the fear of letting go of the past. That weekend, there were boxes all over the house, so I invited Tom and John over. Come take a look, guys, I said. If you see something useful, take it. Tom went through the boxes, like he was hunting for treasure. John picked up an old toaster. So what's next? You gonna start living with 3 t-shirts now? Tom laughed. Michael definitely watched some minimalist documentary last week. We all laughed. Tom picked up an old tool. Man, why are you throwing this away? It still works. Tom, I said, I think that was exactly the problem. That evening, we all had dinner together in the kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt lighter, emptier, but warmer. During dinner, the kitchen felt different, not quieter, lighter. You could actually see the counters again. Most of the boxes were gone. The drawers were closing properly, and for the first time in years, it felt like the house wasn't working against us anymore. John looked around the kitchen. Honestly, this place feels better. Tom nodded. Yeah, it feels more open. Then he laughed. But I'm still taking that toaster. We all laughed. Leo was sitting with us too, quietly listening. Then suddenly he said, I think the house got bigger. Olivia smiled. I looked around, and strangely, he was right. The house hadn't actually gotten bigger. It had just started breathing again. Watching them that night, I realized the 80-20 rule wasn't just about stuff. It was everywhere, in closets, in spending, in stress, and in relationships. We meet dozens of people throughout our lives. But as the years pass, the number of people who truly stay in our lives becomes very small. Maybe out of 10 friends, only 2 or 3 are still there in the end. And that night, they were sitting in my kitchen. Tom, John, and even though he wasn't physically there, in some way, Warren too. I looked at all of them for a moment, and I felt lucky. Because as you get older, you realize something. Most things that make life beautiful aren't very big things. Sometimes it's just a lighter house, a warm kitchen, and a few people you can truly feel comfortable around. Over the next few days, the house kept changing, slowly, quietly. A shelf became empty. A corner became visible again. A drawer closed easily for the first time. And strangely, we were changing too. One evening, Olivia was sorting through old clothes. Leo was with us. He picked up one of his toys, looked at it for a long time, then turned to me. "Do we really have to give this away?" I looked at the toy. We had bought it together years ago. For a moment, it felt like I was looking at an old memory. And that was when I realized something. Sometimes people aren't attached to objects. They're attached to memories. Leo placed the toy back into the box, but this time he looked calmer. I think he was starting to understand too. A few days later, we loaded most of the boxes into the car. The trunk was full. The back seats were full. Leo looked at the boxes through the window. "Is someone going to use these?" "Yes," I said. "What we don't use anymore might still be valuable to someone else." I started the car, and for the first time in a long time, I noticed there was actual empty space in the garage. The boxes were gone. Walking felt easier, and that evening, I parked the car inside again. The engine stopped. Silence. Leo smiled a little. "Dad, the car is back home." I smiled too, and strangely, it felt like it wasn't just the car. Our lives were slowly finding their way back too. That night, the house felt different. Emptier, but strangely, richer. Olivia was in the living room. Leo was already asleep, and I was sitting alone in the kitchen. There was a cup of coffee in front of me, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt quiet, real quiet, the kind of quiet without the noise of clutter. That night, I started reading more about minimalism online. People kept talking about the same things: less stress, less distraction, more peace, more time. And honestly, at first, I thought some of it sounded exaggerated. But then I looked around the kitchen. The counters were calm. The drawers were closing. The garage looked like a garage again. And for the first time, I thought, maybe this was never really about stuff. Maybe it was about life quietly becoming heavier over time. Because people don't notice it happening. Every new thing adds a little more weight to life. One more thing to clean. One more thing to move. One more thing to think about. And over the years, those small weights start adding up. Until one day, you don't even understand why you feel tired anymore. That night, I wrote a small note to myself. Less stuff is not less life. It's more breathing room. And I think for the first time, I stopped seeing minimalism as a decoration trend and started seeing it as a feeling of freedom. A few days later, I met Warren at the park. I had an old book with me. We sat down on a bench. I handed him the book. "This belonged to my father," I said. "It had been sitting in the house for years. I found it again the other day." Then I smiled a little. "I brought it for you. A small gift from me. I hope you like it." Warren carefully took the book, looked at the cover, turned a few pages, and a small but sincere smile appeared on his face. "Thank you, Michael. This is a beautiful gift." We stayed quiet for a while. The wind gently moved the trees. People walked through the park. Then Warren looked at the cover again. "Some things wait for the right time." I smiled too. I was thinking, Warren was right. A few years ago, I would have thought keeping that book in a box meant valuing it, but now I thought differently, because sometimes truly valuing something doesn't mean forgetting it inside a box for years. It means bringing it back into life. And for the first time in a long time, My mind felt a little quieter too. I think I was finally starting to understand something. Minimalism wasn't about owning less. It was about making room again for what truly mattered. That evening when I came home, Olivia was in the living room. Leo was in his room doing homework, and the house, for the first time in a long time, felt like it wasn't working against us anymore. It was quiet, peaceful. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, then looked around, and strangely, I started noticing things I hadn't noticed before. The empty space, the silence, the comfort. What once looked like missing something now looked like peace. And I think during that process, I realized something else too. Most things in our lives weren't truly serving us anymore. They had simply become habits. Certain purchases, certain objects, certain stresses, even certain thoughts. Sometimes people assume something is necessary simply because they've carried it for so long. But when they finally let it go, they realize something. Maybe they weren't carrying it. Maybe it was carrying them. That night, sitting in the kitchen, I thought to myself, I think I learned a few things from all of this. Then I started writing down small notes, my own lessons, from our little minimalism revolution. The first one was this: everything we own asks for a little bit of energy from us. The second, sometimes people don't buy things because they need them. They buy them because they feel bad. The third, clutter doesn't only exist in a house, it exists in the mind too. The fourth, children don't really listen to us, they copy us. The fifth, most things we keep saying we might need one day stay in the same place for years. The sixth, some objects aren't really objects, they're memories, pieces of the past. The seventh, having more things doesn't always mean being richer. The eighth, sometimes freedom comes not from buying new things, but from letting some things go. The ninth, most things in our lives exist, not because they're truly necessary, but because they became habits. And the 10th, and maybe the most important one, was this: the things making our lives heavier were not the things we didn't have. They were the things we kept carrying. I sat there quietly for a while. Then I looked around the kitchen. The house was emptier, but for the first time in a long time, life felt a little lighter too. That's all from me for now, friends. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.